Thank you, Saley. Um, so today's tech talk will be focused on the improvements to how we work with Moses, with the new Moses Executive. In particular, focused on the workflows that you can now use that are much more streamlined than they were in the past. So I'll show you an example of the old methods of working with Moses, of which I'm sure all of you have seen before. And then I'll do a rundown of how you work with the new executive and how it can improve your workflows going forward. So the new executive itself is a unified editing, analysis, and post-processing user interface. So the one application contains a smart editor where you have command highlighting and context-sensitive help capabilities, just like you had in the old Moses editor. It also contains advanced data processing features, so we now can directly plot graphs and interact with SQLite database results tables inside the executive itself, rather than having to go external and work with Excel, for example. And we have some updated model viewing capabilities where you can directly record AVI files from a desired viewpoint in the executive itself, and you can print images of the model really simply and quickly. So to start with, I would like to show you how you used to work with Moses. So here I have a sample CIF file. I'm going to open it with the Moses editor. And you'll see a small application pop up on your screen with a ribbon interface where you can make new documents, open old ones, and open files related to that command input file. So in this case, you have ray.cif, and there's also a ray.dat that comes with that. And inside we have some insert commands to insert our geometry into that file. Up in the ribbon, we have our standard cut, copy, paste, find and font information, but that's about as detailed as it gets. This model itself is a splashstone analysis. So we're going to import a crane barge, perform some pressure calculations on it in the hydrodynamics menu, and then suspend a plem from the top of the crane barge and report on trajectory information of that plem as it's hanging from the crane. If we run it in the old Moses, you can click on the run button in the editor. That fires off the old Moses classic user interface. And we run through the time domain analysis of that, that splashstone that we're doing. It completes and then plots all your trajectory reports and then closes straight away. We can then rerun that analysis, and in the command input we can find any information we like about the information about that analysis. So that could include a status, buoyancy, and weight calculation. And then we can just hit Control-G on our keyboards to get a 3D view of the model. Typically, you have to scroll into the model nice and close, and you get that typical lime green, magenta, cyan color scheme. And if you click on any panel, on the right-hand side, you'll see some data displayed in the red, orange, yellow, green, and purple tabs. That data was kind of disjointed. You had to click on each one to show you exactly what information that was there. And each color was not directly representative of a certain part of that model. If you then clicked on a connector, you would find different information on different color tabs. And so that made it quite difficult to find exactly the information you needed to find about whatever object you were selecting. You could also play a video by clicking on the play button at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen and get an idea of how the bodies behaved over the course of a time domain analysis. You can see the motions happening there on your screen now. Once you're happy with that, you could save this to an AVI file or an MPEG file, but the image quality was quite poor and you were stuck with certain angles of your analysis. Now, as you always would have had done in the past, you can go into the answer folders and you can open up the log file, review that, see what errors and warnings you had. You can also go into the output file and you can review the data. So in this case, I'm looking for mean drift forces, and I'm also going to be looking at the trajectory, the locations and accelerations on my selected bodies. So that was the old version of Moses. What we've done is combine all these tools into one single environment that makes it really easy for you to see exactly what's going on. So this is what the new Moses Executive looks like. You can see it's a ribbon-based interface as well. We have your ribbon across the top of the screen where we have some options to open and close documents, run analyses, and then view various windows. And you can see down here I've got it in the editing layout at the moment with no file loaded, so I have a project tree on the left. I have a space for my file to appear in the middle, and then the empty log window because nothing's running just yet. If I click on the M Moses button at the top, I can open any file I've had before. And so we're still using ray.cif, so I'm going to open that from my recent folders. And you can see straight away on the left-hand side there, I already have some open files there. I can go and reference that ray.dat file. And also within that ray.dat file, I've had a few inserted files as well. And Moses picks those up for you, and you can then directly open them from the project tree on the left-hand side. It's a far more streamlined process for you rather than having to go back to your Windows Explorer and then open those files individually like you have done in the past. Inside the editor, I can highlight any command I like, and I can press the F1 button on my keyboard, and that will launch a browser window containing help documentation on that specific command. So in this case, I've highlighted G pressure. I can see all the options available to me and a description of what it does. Then I can close that window down, go back to my command input file, and if I look down the bottom, I have two lines here that I've commented out. They're in green color, so they're not actually going to be active in analysis. If I highlight them and then go up to the top here, you notice I've got some comment and uncomment buttons. So I can take large groups of text, comment them out, uncomment them, so you can have them available in certain analyses or not available, depending on what you wish to do if you're doing some debugging, for example. Further, as we move left along the ribbon, you can see we've got our standard find and replace, go spell, and then we can cut, copy and paste, save information, do all the things we would normally expect to do in a ribbon interface. Once I'm happy with that, I can press the run button, and you'll notice the analysis appears on the right hand side there. We color code the analysis. We have light blue for your command, gray for the output information. Any information is in a green text, orange for warning, and then red for errors. We look up the top again, where that run button was before, there is now a stop button, and you can hover over that and you can stop the analysis at any time. And next to that is the clear results. You can clear those results and start again if you need to. Now, one thing I will point out is that previously you'd see here at the bottom ampersand finish. That would mean Moses Classic version would close down and finish the program completely. In the executive, we've disabled that and treated it like an ampersand end of file command, which enables you to directly interact with the Moses solver as soon as your analysis is finished, which is a really useful tool. All the information saved to file is still there. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen in my results tables have appeared. So I've got the graphs that I wanted to plot have appeared as a PNG, and my log and output files are there also. So you can see all that information there as well. If I double click on one of those graphs, I can directly open up the image using the Windows image viewer, and I can see a plot of the trajectory with time. In this case, I'm looking at bottom clearance of the plem as it's hanging from the crane. I can also review my log file that appears in my editor window. I can see if there are any errors in the analysis as well there. And I can also look at my output file with the old text tables. In this case, I can look at my mean drift forces and expand out the window to make it nice and easy for me to see. And then I can scroll all the way down to the bottom and view my locations that have been plotted from, or that have been recorded from my trajectory analysis. Once I'm happy with that, I can then close those documents down. I'll close the existing macro and data file and just leave the CIF file there for now. Then on the top here, I can see I can click on something called the results layout, and that changes my view completely. And it gives me 3 windows to view data from, as well as the existing command input file. We have a zoomed out image of the geometry, which I'll zoom in on shortly. And we also have some results tables and a plot window which doesn't have any data in it just yet because I haven't selected anything. But for the moment, we're going to focus on the model window. So I'm going to remove the plot and results windows, expand out the model window as big as I possibly can, and then zoom in using the middle wheel on my mouse all the way into a nice model of my plem hanging from the crane barge. On the bottom left here, you can see we have the view buttons. You can just click on one of those and change from a top view to a starboard, port, bow stern views, and you can also click on an isometric button as well. I have some plus and minus buttons to zoom in and out, and a zoom extents button, so that will move all the way back out again so I can see the whole model if I so wish. Then I have a pan button, which is the same as just using the middle wheel on your mouse, clicking on that. And we also have a rotate button, which is the same as using the right button on your mouse to rotate the image to whatever view you like. Once you're happy with that view, we can then review the movie buttons we have available to us. The first one just plays a movie to the screen, so you can see what the analysis was like. This is like clicking play in the old version of Moses. Then you have your slow and fast play buttons and a stop button. And finally, that red record button allows you to directly record an animation of your analysis to an AVI file and save that for later use based on the view that you have in front of you. So in this case, I am choosing the start event of 0 seconds and only going to the first 100 events. So I'm only looking for 100 out of the 1200 events I could possibly run here. And the video itself, I want to run that for just 10 seconds only. So it's going to be 10 times faster than the real world simulation. And I'm also going to name it Splash Zone, and that will save into my answer file. If I click OK, you'll then notice that after a brief pause as Moses starts to buffer, the video will start to play on your screen. And while it's doing this, you'll notice that on the bottom left, all your view buttons are grayed out, except for the stop button, which you can then use to stop the analysis, stop the video from playing. Once it's finished creating all these pictures, it gets to the event number 100, and then you'll be able to open up your results folder again and view directly where that AVI has been saved. So if I go to that folder and go to ray.ans, you still find all the details there. Double click on Splash Zone, and this is the video that is produced by that. So you can see the quality of the image is far, far better than just the screen one you had. It's also a better quality image that we're able to produce with the classic version as well. Now, the other big bonus is if I click on a given object, so for example, this connector, which is hanging from the top of the crane to my plem, you can now see that on the left-hand side, I've gone to my properties pane, and that shows all the object properties that you would have seen in those colored tabs from before, but they are named. So I can see the object properties in the top left-hand there, which tells me it's from the boom. I can look at my connector properties, my tensions, the class of the connector, and where the ends are. And a really cool feature is you can collapse these sections so you can just view the data you wish. You can also copy that data and save it to text file or an Excel document if you so wish. If you then click on a panel on the body itself, again, you get similar information, but you get different types of information because we're not looking at a connector now, we're looking at a panel that belongs to a piece, which belongs to a part, and so on. So that's a much, much better way of looking at the problem. It gives you full flexibility and actually gives you some description of what you're viewing in that results properties pane. If we go back to the command input file and just say, let's just open up the results and the plot, I can now see that I've chosen to view my mean drift forces. That's the first table you can see displayed on the top part of the screen. If I go to my results properties again, now I'm looking at analysis settings and results filters and so on for the results itself, not for the model view. So I can filter any column by whatever heading or surge, sway, whatever I like. I can change that. And so at the moment I'm looking at mean drift forces at 45 degrees. I can also look at 90 degrees if I so wish, and 135 together. And you can see once I've done that, both my table at the top, my results table, has expanded out to show all the data that's available to us for those different headings, but also the mean drift forces plot immediately below that now shows the surge and sway for all of those headings that I have described as well on one plot. Now, if I don't want to see any particular heading other than 45 degrees, I can remove both 135 and 90. And then if I need to, I can use a second column filter selection, which is really handy for looking at different connectors and how they behave. Now, on the graph side of things, I can also change the axes view, so I can go from 0 to 12 seconds period instead of 0 to 25. I can change that. That's really useful for things like trajectory analysis, which is a lot of data over a very long period of time, which you can then use to take a snapshot of, say, 10 to 20 seconds. What did my body do over that period of time? If I want to look at not just surge and sway, but also heave, I can select that on the dependent axis details there on the left-hand side, and I can see that appearing on my graph. I can also look at roll, pitch, and yaw if I wanted to as well for my drift forces. Now, specifically relating to the graph itself, I've got a Cartesian graph, but I can also select a polar one if I wish. And those polar graphs are really useful for, say, looking at the dynamic positioning of a single body over a period of time and seeing the window that it can operate in. So that's really, really useful. Typically at the moment, I'd only want to use the Cartesian one, but that's fine. But you can use it for any graph you like. You can turn the legend on and off if you don't wish to have it there. You can also swap the axes around, so you can have period on your vertical axis as opposed to horizontal axis. And finally, you can change your line type from just points, which is what I prefer, to a line if you so wish, or you can show lines and points as well. So you have a range of options you can do. Now, if I zoom in on this graph, I can also right click on it. I can change the graph that I want to look at. I can switch to trajectory of the acceleration of the bodies or the location of the bodies. And finally, I can then go and copy that image directly to the clipboard. So if I copy that, open up an Excel document, I can then just paste that picture right in there, ready for reference later on. So you could do it into a Word document if you so wish. If we turn our attention to the results tables, if you click the top left-hand box, it highlights the entire results table of what you have selected based in your results properties. You can then also copy that data by just going copy all or copy just for the individual parts. Again, go to your Microsoft Excel application, select a cell, and then directly paste that data straight in there for use later on if you need to. And finally, you can take small sections of the data and copy and paste those in exactly the same fashion as you would have done with the whole data set. So it's a really nice streamlined way of getting data directly from Moses straight into an Excel document if you so wish. Other features, I can click on a column and sort descending or sort ascending, and you'll notice that all the data follows suit. So you don't end up losing any fidelity in your data. And you can also click and increase the number of decimal places for that column or decrease them and so on. So that's the kind of interactions you can make with your results view in the executive. Now, if we return to the model view, I can hide both the plot window as well. The other thing that's really useful is you can move and dock windows to different places. Now, I thought as an aside, I'd show you a nice little trick here. The color schemes that we have in Moses, the lime green and magenta, they can be changed, and I'm sure some of the users know how to do that already. But you can directly change the colors of models if you need to by invoking the dash color option on various parts of models. So if we scroll down the tonkawa.dat file, which is the crane barge, and we get down to a pgen statement here, you can see I've got dash color red. If I invoke that, then I would want the whole of my barge to be red. If I look in the macros as well, you can use the default color option to change the color scheme of whatever object is going to be drawn next. So in this case, I'm creating the mooring lines for this barge, and I want them to all be black. So I write default color black there. Then if I open an input window, and remember Moses is still running now, I can also float that over the top of anything else. And if I type in ampersand picture dash render gl dash color and then the word model, hit enter, we'll get an image refresh on the right hand side there, and then we can scroll in and you can see we have a red barge with black mooring lines, black crane cables, and also we have other parts that have been colored in different colors. Also yellow for the crane and silver for the turret. Again, I can right click, copy and paste that image, the view that I've got, the exact view I have, directly into a Word document for later use. So you can change the viewpoint you have in the executive and put that item straight into the document. Now, if we go up to the top here, you notice we'll have a series of tabs in our ribbons. If we go to the model ribbon, you'll see that all the buttons you had at the bottom of the model window are also up here for your use. So you can zoom, play videos, change your viewpoint. If we then move up to the settings tab, if you go to licensing preferences and click on that, you'll be able to change whatever license you're using. So if you want to use Moses Advanced instead of Moses Enterprise, you simply click on the Moses Advanced button, press OK. Moses will warn you saying, yes, you're changing the license, but it also remind you that it won't change until you restart the application. So it's still using Enterprise until you then restart. You can change your dimensions here as well. So default for us is meters and metric tons. And you have some other settings there as well to do with the theme of the application and the font settings as well. If we go to general now, you'll notice here that there are some existing buttons or selections that you would have had in the old Moses Classic version. So you could use echoing of macro commands to the log file, you could echo the command input to the output file. But one thing we have added specifically for the executive is to send all reports to the results database. That by default is turned on. And what that means is that every time you use the word report in any of your analyses, if that flag is set, not only will you get the report into the output file, you'll also get that report saved to a SQLite database, which is what the Moses executive then uses to reference for your results tables and for creating your plots. So it's a really useful tool there. We also have your general parameters, defaults, and report options buttons up here. They contain the exact same information that you had in the old Moses Classic when you had the menus at the top. Defaults, parameters, and report options were all there before. It's the exact same content as you had there as well. We then go to the support tab. You can click on the help button. That straight away launches the help for the executive manual. And you can scroll down through that and find out any information you might like about the executive, how to work with it, any hidden tools that I haven't talked about today that might be useful to you. And then if you so wish, if you've got a problem with the executive or any part of Moses at all, you found a bug that you think might be of use to us, or you simply want to give us your feedback, you can click on the service request button and you can fill out a service request, give us some details about any problem you might be suffering, and then send that off to us that way. And from this section, you can get some updates, so the news, go directly to the Moses website, find out legal and copyright notices, and a bit about the executive as well. The final tab is for Bentley Cloud Services. So if you have a project associated with the Bentley Connect system, then you can dissociate those projects and do all that directly from the interface. So I'm hoping that this has given you a brief overview of exactly what the executive does. Bear in mind that this is, yes, it will replace the existing Moses Classic user interface. We're anticipating that an upcoming release will be the last where you can use both. But from 11.02 onwards, it will just be the executive. One important thing to note here is that everything you see here, so that the way you write CIF files, do batch processing, everything is still available to you, and we will never ever go away from that. You'll still be able to write command input files the same way you have, but we'll eventually add in some more tools here so you can auto-generate transportation, launch analyses, do some batch processing on a larger scale using a grid-based method and so on. So we will have new tools continually added to the executive to improve the usability of it going forward. So just to finish off, I'll just let you know about some upcoming information. So we are expecting to release version 11.01 of Moses in the next week or so. That release contains the Moses Executive, which is now in general availability. Up until now, it's been a technology preview, and we thank everybody for their feedback that they have given us feedback. Feedback is always welcome. If you have any comments or suggestions, please send them to us, and you can do that by the user support tab in the executive. Also of note, coming out this release is a technology preview of some field point analysis work we can do. So this now means you can designate points of interest anywhere in the environment, and you can compute wave potentials at those points. And this is ideal for use in free surface to structure clearance analyses. So if you want to know the statistics on the clearance between the free surface and the underdeck of your structure, you can do all that now with the field points command. We also have numerous bug fixes and some minor improvements that are coming out. If you want full details of that, you can find them in the release note of your version 11.01 of Moses. And like I said, that would be due out in the next week or so. So that concludes the tech talk for today. Do you have any questions? And I'll hand over to James for any questions.